All right, thanks very much for coming out, for braving it and coming back out in person now for our reform. We're really glad to be back in person, and we're glad you're here, so thank you. Hopefully you had a chance to check out some of the sponsors. So these are the folks who make this happen every month, so hopefully you had a chance to see what they have to offer in the community. I have an idea that's percolating that I'll be looking for feedback on, and that's to have an expo where women can bring in what they sell, the product, their service, and basically have a table for their business this fall here, and then invite in the community. So we're kind of noodling on that idea, and I'd love your feedback on what would make that happen, make it a good event, would be valuable for you if you want to participate. So stay tuned, and I will be sending out some information on that. Okay, I'm going to just get us started without anything further. For those that don't know, I'm Christine Beach. I run the Bar Institute for Entrepreneurial Studies, and we sponsor the WeForum along with Collider, Grady, SCORE, and Rochester Women's Magazine, and the Chamber. I should have written that part down. Okay. Each month we do a different topic that is supposed to be relevant to you as women in business, whether you run a business or you're thinking about running a business, that would be relevant to what you do. And I'm so glad we're not facing that.
I was going to say, speaking running.
We have a whole team that just ran by. So this morning we have a great group of ladies to talk about leadership. And so I'll just give a quick introduction to each of them, although I suspect you don't really need much of an introduction. But we have Mayor Kim Norton, who's the first woman mayor of Rochester. I'm going to go ahead and sit down. And before that, she was on the Rochester School Board. She was in the Minnesota Senate. She's been there, done it in leadership. She's also a Bush Fellow who finished the Humphrey School at the University of Minnesota in public affairs. And she's just, you're in the Women Empower Executive Education Program at Harvard University, which is pretty cool. And the Rockwood Leadership Institute. So I think we have a lot we can learn from Mayor Norton on leadership. And then we have Robin Gwaltney, who is a pretty darn amazing businesswoman. Many of you may know her. She has started the Gwaltney Group after 20 years at Mayo Clinic, proving that the entrepreneurial spirit can happen anytime, in any form. And now has, I was just looking last night, like 28 people on the team.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And they're an award-winning real estate team. In addition to that, Robin and her husband Scott for years ran Rochester Better Chance, where she was kind of like a surrogate mom to many people who came to this community for their education. I think they're still years. Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah. So you're still in relationship with just about all of them.
Absolutely.
So a lot of different leadership roles in both business and the personal side. And then we've got Bethany, who's really, that's all she's about, is strengths-based leadership. And so it kind of exudes everything she does. So when you think about Bethany, you probably think about strengths-based training, but she's been doing that for 17 years. So that's a deep set of roots in teaching people how to leverage what they do well to be a great leader. So I really feel like between the three of them, they can share a lot of really good stuff about leadership, because we all know that sometimes feeling like a leader doesn't come naturally. So yeah, whether you're in a formal or informal leadership role, sometimes it just doesn't feel quite comfortable being in charge. So anyway, with all of that, I'd like to get us started. And so I'm going to kick it off with a question for each of you, just to kind of get us rolling. So I'll start with you, Robin, since you're right here. Would you tell us how you describe your leadership style, or how others would describe it, maybe how it's changed over time?
Okay. I guess I feel like I lead with boots on the ground. So in real estate, especially, a lot of large team leaders will just manage the team and they quit selling real estate. But I have such a passion for selling real estate that I will not quit that ever. So I'm selling right along with my team members. And I think that they find that very encouraging. and they can relate to my 12-hour days and 14-hour days and weekends and evenings, because I'm not sitting back and collecting, money from them out working. So I think that's been very effective for me. And as far as how I've seen my leadership change, I think in the beginning I was much more had to be in control of everything. It was really hard for me to let anybody else do it for me, because I was always very much afraid they wouldn't do it right or do it as well as I do it. But Bethany's been a big help for me. She's my strengths coach, and she has helped me learn that it is perfectly fine to let go of some of that. And it actually has been awesome, because it makes me realize I'm not all that special. There's a lot of people that can do it just as good as I can. So yeah, it's been good.
Very cool. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a particular easily defined style. It's just skills that have evolved over time, and sometimes people would call them maybe not skills. But I prefer my preference would be to lead from behind. But just as I heard Robin just say, it is hard to let go. And I think I came into my leadership because I was the one always saying, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, and I see lots of heads nod. And you end up doing everything. And then pretty soon you become the one to do the task.
Right.
And then you have to let go of that as you grow in your leadership to say, I can trust other people to do it.
Yeah.
But that's hard to let go.
It is.
Right? And find that it really is about balancing. And I think for me, I love collaborating. I love problem solving. Those are things that really excite me about going to work and working with other people. Over time, in addition to what I just said, is I have to work on being more patient. As I've gotten older, my patience has gotten shorter, and I'm not sure why that is. It should be. And so that's something I have to consciously address all the time, is to be patient, because I want to bring other women leaders along. And sometimes when they're brand new and they don't know what they don't know, it takes really consciously being patient to say, what was I like when I was that age? I thought I knew everything. I didn't know everything. I had to learn that I didn't know everything. And now I need to help other people that same way.
Awesome. My style is honest. I actually got some feedback from someone this week. If you get feedback, you should take it. And then you sift it through and you see what resonates, and anything that's rooted in shame, you discard, and then you keep all the rest, right? But I got some feedback from someone this week, and they said to me, one of the things that I appreciate most about you is that you always tell me the truth. And even if it's hard. And so I think my style is pretty honest. My husband would say direct. And I think that I really resonate, and I have for a really long time, with the Brene Brown concept that clear is kind. And so I don't want to beat around the bush with someone about things that I see, and that lends very well for consulting. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people don't want to hear certain things, they don't want to hear you tell them. But I think I've had to take my leadership style and then layer that on top of my values. And one of my values in life is honor. And so I feel like if I'm honoring people, if my goal is to honor them, then the directness will come in love. And the honesty will come in love, to say, you know what, like that was a really poor move, or you need to say sorry. I know you suck at saying sorry, but you need to really do that. And so doing some of that, I found that people like the truth. People like honesty. And so I think I have become a leader by being honest. That people, because that's what a longing, I think, of a human person. So.
All right. So oftentimes, and I heard it when Mayor Norton was speaking, that leadership kind of creeps up on you from doing things, right? And so there comes a point, and unlike me, who in the military, you kind of get put in the leadership role, and people, guess what, you're in charge, right? So at what point did you know you were a leader, that other people were looking to you to lead them in, whether it's in an effort that you're volunteering in, or your own business, or
I honestly knew that since the time I was 11 years old, because I used to babysit for the neighbors who had 6 kids. And I could get those 6 kids set down, lined up, fed, in bed. And I mean, I seriously was so good that people were booking me out weeks in advance. So it's like, I knew I had something right then, okay? And then by the time I was a senior in high school, I was very involved in high school and in extracurricular, and I was a full-time waitress at the Anchor Inn and the head waitress. So there were women that were full-time waitresses that were in their 40s, and I was their boss, and I was making the schedule. So yeah, it just came natural. Came natural, came very natural.
Yeah. Well, I did babysitting too, and I'd rather have the people that you were babysitting than mine. I babysat 4 little boys regularly. Why I got hired, I have no idea. And they would throw eggs back and forth. And you couldn't stop them, right?
Oh my gosh.
Not
Yeah,
much.
that was my babysitting. So I would say for me, some of it started coming out of college. And so recently on social media, I was criticized as being a sorority girl. And in fact, I am a sorority girl. I was in a sorority in college. I didn't fit in very well, but I was in. And there was a whole house filled with leaders. And so I started learning from other people, but I was reluctant in my leadership there. But when I left, I took those skills with me and found other places in the community where I could lead, where I was comfortable. And I started doing things with domestic violence and things in the community and learning. And I'm a natural learner. I love learning. I love going to school. And so education empowered me, and which is why I continue. I just finished my master's 2 years ago. I continue to grow and learn, and that empowers me to use what I learned as part of my leadership. So when I came to Rochester, I used it in ways. I volunteered a ton. My resume of volunteerism is obnoxious. I got involved in the PTA and volunteering in schools and I often tell people when I ran for office the first time, I was helping other men run for office, and I was their campaign chair, and I was doing publicity for them. And then one day I said, I know more than they do about this subject. Why am I helping them? And that's when I decided to run myself and had more confidence that I could do it. So it was through education and experience that I started gaining enough self-confidence that I wasn't born with it.
I don't know, I just came natural.
I'm the oldest of 3 brothers, but I did not have that. So.
It's really so beautiful. Like, we all have such diverse experiences, right? And we come at it like from such different ways. This is a really good question. I like Christine. Christine's good. She has intellection, if you're wondering. I really loved the moment of thinking about this, because I realized that I also had, like, I think just a lot of confidence. I was very privileged to have parents that were like deeply in love and strong marriage and a great sibling, you know what I'm saying? And like, my needs were provided for. And I know already that puts me into like this category of like human beings that like are so privileged, right? And so I think as a result of that, I developed just a natural confidence. Just like, I can do that. I can do that. And I'm wired to like poke at systems. I want people to be in better situations. And so when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader. Maybe that surprises some of you. But okay. See, we're there, okay. I was a cheerleader and dancer. I was a competitive cheerleader, a stunter, like we did all the things. Don't even start with me that cheerleading is not a sport, because I can probably beat you up, okay? And so I saw the squad and I thought to myself, like, this could be better led. And I remember thinking that as like a 14-year-old. Like I was a freshman, and I just had seen a year under my belt, and I was just like, this is bad. And I don't even know if I could articulate why, but I just knew it wasn't being run well and that humans were not being treated well. And just, so they were looking for captains for the varsity squad, and I was going to be a sophomore, and I just tried out. I was just like, I can do this. And I think it wasn't enough that I thought I could lead. I think the moment that I realized I was a leader was when someone else chose me. Like, when what I was saying I would do for them was what they wanted. Like, when where I showed up in the world met a need, right? And so I was the youngest captain ever to be selected to be on my school squad. So I was a sophomore leading with another senior captain, and I led the varsity squad for 3 years. And that was a moment where I realized, like, I'm a leader, not just to me, but like leaders need followers. Okay. And so like people saw that I was someone worth following, and that resonated with them, and that gave me a new level of confidence. Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 pretty confident leaders, at least at this stage in the game, right? Very confident in their leadership. That's not everybody. So what are the strategies for showing up as an effective leader in the workplace, in your opinion? You want to start us off with?
Yeah. I mean, the chance of someone having your same top 5 strengths is 1 in 33.4 million. So good luck finding someone else that's wired like you. So the moment you can embrace that, something happens. When you stop hustling to try to be like someone else and be like, oh, I want to be like the mayor. Oh my gosh, I wish I loved going to school. I don't. You know, like, oh, like, you know, I wish I could, you know, do this, or like that person or whatever. It's just like, once you settle in, you're like, oh, I'm wired like this. And I am ready to meet a unique need in the world that only I can do. Then all of a sudden you're kind of like, you stop comparing. You stop looking around. You stop like putting someone down because you need to lift yourself up. You're more just like, rad, keep doing that. How can I help you? You know? And so I think some of that is, I think the confidence comes, you got to do the work. If you think what you've been doing of non-self-exploration is going to help you, hustling doesn't help. Self-reflection, like going to therapy, getting a coach, like surrounding yourself with people that are confident as well and that believe in you, and they're going to call out that strength in you. I mean, that's it. So I don't think it's automatic. I think it takes work. I think it takes intention. And yeah, just like comparison's a killer. It really is. You can admire people, you know, you can respect other people for what they do, but it should only cause you to fall into more of who you are, not try to be more like them.
So you're in a little bit different of a situation where you have to be an effective leader with a lot of criticism. And that just comes with the public eye.
Yes.
So how do you effectively lead knowing that everything gets second guessed more so than probably the rest of us just because of this book?
It was pretty clear early on that you're never going to make everyone happy. And you have to be okay with that. And I watch new leaders struggle because they think they can make everyone happy. They think they can make everyone agree with them, and you can't. But as Bethany was saying, when you're honest with people about why you are doing what you're doing, there's a lot of forgiveness there. And actually, Sheila Cascaden, you know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. One of the things that Sheila always did was say, you may not agree with what I did, but here's why I did it. And so you can go, oh yeah, you know, I may not have agreed with that vote, but now I understand why she made that. And that was a real aha for me to say, people aren't going to agree with everything that I do, but I have to make tough decisions for the state or the school district or the city, knowing that my arrow is always pointed toward what's best for the community, not the person standing in front of me. And that's really hard because you're hearing someone's story and you love that person, and it's just not the right decision for the city or the state or whatever. So you have to think for the broader picture, but that honesty, if you come at what you're doing with that authentic, you know, I am who I am, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I heard from other people, and this is the decision I have to make, and I know you don't like it, and I'm sorry, but this is what I have to do, really helps. And so, you know, being honest with yourself, I don't play games very well, which is why after 10 years I left the legislature, because I get tired of the game playing that's part of that politics, and I need to be true to myself and not play games. And so, yeah, there is a lot of criticism out there, and it's hard not to take it personally. We all have our own baggage and our own experiences. I think sometimes women have more of those negative experiences than men sometimes in the leadership world. And that is with you. It's who you are, and you have to tamp that down a lot. And when you're faced with constant criticism, that's very difficult to say, this isn't personal. They have their own issues. This isn't about me, Kim, as a person.
Yes.
This is an issue, and we're just going to disagree on it. And it's time, I have to just say, and I have to move on.
That's good. That's absolutely true. That's so good.
And I know too that because when I started real estate, I had been working at Mayo for 20 years. And I started selling real estate now 21 years ago. So my second career has surpassed my first. But in 2000, I was a brand new real estate agent. And by 2002, I was one of the top agents in the city. Well, that did not sit well with a lot of the agents that had already been 20 years in the business, and especially a lot of the male agents. And so I remember I was invited to a panel like this, and it was full of new real estate agents, and the room was, and the questions were like, how did you get so successful so fast? And it was really crazy because as new agents, they were more interested in how Robin, who had been a realtor for 2 years, was already on this panel versus Frank, who'd been there 20 years, and Bill, who'd been there 25. And so they kept directing the questions at me, which I think was already pissing these guys off. And then I finally, one person said, how did you get so successful so fast? And before I could even answer, the man next to me said, she bought her way in. Have you seen her advertisements? I was like, oh. I said, well, I do have a marketing degree. So yes, I have, made good use of that degree, and I do advertise. I don't think that's necessarily buying my way in, but it's like, whoa. And I realized then that, Robin, these people are not excited that you're doing well fast. So just embrace that. And I have realized that, you just have to shut off the outside noise. I have become very successful because I work really hard and I treat people right. And also because I tell the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't easy to tell. Like when I'm at a customer's house and they tell me, but I want $500,000 for my house and it's worth $425. I say, and I want to be a size 0, but I think we're both on the line. You know what I mean? That this is what it's worth. So the truth is the truth. So I feel like when we have that as the basis for who we are, and we always are honest, yeah, it does help us for sure lead and do well.
So I hear this theme of being authentic and real and honest, which I think people appreciate. But that can also backfire when people hear what they don't want to hear, especially when they work for you or you are in a leadership capacity over them and you have to share something that's not easy or pleasant to hear. So can you think of some time where it's like, that went sideways, and here's how I manage that going sideways?
Yes, I have one agent who, for whatever reason, he used to just rub me the wrong way. I mean, he would come near me and I'd be just like, why do I have him on my team? And yet other people would say, he's not a bad guy. And I'm like, oh. So once we started with strengths training and I started to learn that we aren't all wired the same way and we all do have different strengths. And I started to learn why he acted the way he acted. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. He's not really a bad guy. And so I, put myself out there to just learn more about how the other people on my team work. And I think Bethany can speak to that because she has seen it. And this agent went from being a very mediocre agent to a rock star because I basically let him be him. So I think it's not always easy because if he's not me, I didn't embrace it, but now he's him and I'm totally cool with it. And yeah, I think that it's hard, but it's essential.
So what I'm thinking about is, when we're honest with people, most of the time I think, like Bethany said, they appreciate it, but then there are those who don't, and it just kind of backfires and you have to manage that. How does that?
Yeah, and that does happen, and particularly as Bethany described, I too, and I blame it on being raised in the Midwest. I'm not Minnesota nice because I wasn't born in Minnesota. I can be very blunt, and I'm trying to be, I'm myself, and and I don't hold grudges. But I express what I'm thinking. And sometimes when you're honest with people, they resist that honesty, and they're not used to someone maybe as blunt as I am. And so I've had to learn to modify that. But I also have had to learn, and I continue to learn, that there are lots of people on the city team and in the legislature and on the school board who are very different than I am, who think very different than I am, much like you described in different ways. And they have gifts and strengths that I don't have. Because believe me, while I may be a leader, I have big weak spots. And while I'm a fast thinker and I activate, unless I take time, I'm not organized. I need time to organize, and the life that I have chosen or been chosen to do is very fast paced, and there's something different every minute. So I can't be my best self with organization anymore, which I love to do, but I can't do it. So I have to think, who are the people around me that have those skill sets that are so, I have to pull those people that help me form the best whole, because they have skills I don't have. They're organized. They can do flow charts and they love Excel spreadsheets. But what they do is fabulous. And there's someone on our team, I was talking with my husband this morning, and when you're married to a therapist, you get to ask questions and get help every day at breakfast, even though I don't want to talk.
Send me the bill.
Right. And I have got this person on my team, and she has so much to offer, but this part just drives me crazy constantly. And how can I utilize her wonderful skills and not
Then be honest, but not too blunt.
Exactly, so that you don't hurt their feelings. And I think for me, I don't hold grudges. I may say something, I may get honest, but it's gone because I want to work with that person again the next day. Now, the person I talk to may not be over it quite yet, and that takes some, challenges to tempering your honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I think you guys have said pretty much it all, but I think if you know your motive is pure, and we all know the person who knows is you. Like, if you just were like trying to stir up a little trouble. That's what I ask my kids. Are you stirring up trouble or promoting peace? Are you stirring up trouble by what you're doing or promoting peace? Humans need to ask themselves this question. And if you know yourself and you know that your goal of being honest or your goal of telling the truth was just to like stick it to them, or to show that you're really smart, or to show that they were a jerk, or whatever it was, you know that motive, and you need to backpedal and you need to say you're sorry. The best bosses I've ever had said they're sorry. I literally did some journaling about it recently, and I realized that every person in my life who has ever bothered me as a leader, the characteristic of all those humans was that they don't say sorry. And so just like say you're sorry and own the thing you're sorry for. You don't have to say I'm sorry for telling the truth, but you can say I'm sorry that like my tone was a little punchy. Or I should have thought through my words a little more clearly. I wanted to communicate the same message. It wasn't the right way. Like own the piece that wasn't right, that might have made the person be off put, right? And this is why it's so critical to establish trust with humans. Because if you do that, if you establish trust with people, they'll know your motive was pure and right. If you did it in honor and you did it in love and honesty, then you're gonna have people, like the mayor is saying, you're gonna have people that are not gonna like your approach. Well, because they're not you. And maybe they're 1 in 33 million bumps, you're 1 in 3 million in a like a chemical reaction way. Okay, that's fine. But you can still interact with each other and respect each other, and like say ready, break, and go your like separate ways and do your thing. And Robin has done this. I mean, I know this because of Robin. Robin has had some people like in her life that are really, really hard, that have hurt her really bad. And she has been able to, Robin, you're rad at this. She has been able to leave those situations, and she can meet those people in the community and shake hands with them. And you know what? She'd probably bring them some cookies, and she'd probably like, give them a hug, and they treated her crappy. Well, that's lovely, right? Because if you've established trust and honor and your motive is pure and you've cleared up the waters and said sorry for all the things that you owned, you can walk away feeling good, because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. The person we talk to most in our lives is ourselves. And so if you have to walk away from that and feel bad about yourself, you got to repair that thing.
Well, and it's really important to, I always say, no, I'm never gonna allow the way somebody else behaves affect the way I act. I mean, I'm not gonna let somebody else's behavior control mine, refuse to, so.
And I would say one other thing that I have been doing in the last few years that I didn't necessarily do before out of probably fear is when I can tell, because I have a fairly good EQ, when I can tell that someone that I'm working with is in a bad place, of just saying, what's going on? I can tell you're not having a good day. And sometimes they'll say, oh, it's nothing. But generally, even if they say that, they finally come up and say, you know, this happened, or I was really upset, or, you know, in my office, I thought I knew what you wanted and I guessed wrong. And I'm like, well, you can't read my mind. You do a fabulous job guessing what I want, but you're not faulted for not knowing what's in my head, right? And so having that
Communication.
and open dialogue and not letting what is obvious but unsaid continue.
Yeah.
Because it just can build up to an explosion that will be ugly for everyone. But that's not a Minnesota nice thing.
But I love that you keep saying that, because I am Minnesota nice and I've been born and raised here, but often, I can't even tell you how many times people say to me, are you from New York? And I say, no, but thank you.
I grew up in Nebraska. So like,
No, but thank you so much for asking.
So as you've gone through, we hear a lot that women are incredible leaders. They have high EQ. They're really good at it. And yet there are challenges sometimes in being recognized as a leader in your own right. So can you think through maybe some of the challenges that you might feel are unique to women, identify one and share it with the group, and kind of how you address that challenge? And while you're thinking, because I see Robin's thinking hard right now, while you're thinking, so for me originally, one of my challenges was in the military, people who are leaders have very loud voices, booming voices that they talk with, right? It's not me.
Yeah.
And so having to figure out how to do communication effectively, just verbally, in such a way as to not be, looked over as a leader. So anything like that.
Well, I would say in the legislature, that was definitely true. There is a feeling that if you are male and tall and big and you speak with a big voice, that what you say is more important than someone who just stands up quietly and says something into a microphone. I mean, that isn't the case, but it took a while to kind of get over that and say, that is like wrong. Intimidation is not knowledge or leadership. It's intimidation. So you sort of have to get past that. And I have a recent example. So during the pandemic as mayor, I've had to make a lot of decisions, gaining the best information I had at my fingertips, which was quite good actually, to make decisions that affected everybody in the whole city, knowing they weren't going to be popular with everyone. But also, when anyone got mad about anything in the last 18 months, it was the mayor's fault, right? So I'm the reason everything, any business that failed, any person that failed, it's all my fault. And I get those calls and that kind of intimidation actually quite regularly. And so being able to get past that is one thing, but then not getting recognition. While I don't live for recognition, the last year and a half has been pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And when your peers or other women leaders don't allow you the acknowledgement of what you've been through, has been really difficult.
Oh, that's so
That's
bad.
been really difficult because while other departments like public health may be the leader in this realm and they do make decisions, I'm the one that was going out and telling the community what public health said. Because nobody knows, they do now, but before nobody knew who Graham Briggs was, right? But they know the mayor. So the mayor's the one going out giving Graham Briggs' message to the community all the time. And then somehow after this is all over, that to not acknowledge the experience that I went through when they know has been really hard. And that's a personal issue that I just have to deal with, and I have. But as I was thinking of what you said, I said that was hurtful. When someone else knows what you've been through, but is is like shutting you off.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Thank you for your vulnerability. That's so good. I think that there's actually a lot of challenges unique to women. I mean, like, we could have a whole talk on it. So, I mean, like, let's pick a few. But I just think, I think probably the biggest is this message that women should be able to do everything. That they should be able to manage their homes and have a kid and work 40 hours and clean their house and get a nice meal on the table. I mean, it's just like, what in the world? Like, what is this? Who does that? A superhuman? Like, if we turned that around and tried to like get a man to do that, sorry, dude, they don't. Like, but would we ask that of a man? No, but why do we keep asking it of women? And so I think because of that, women have this message like, I'm failing. Like, they're always telling themselves, the story I'm telling myself is that I'm always failing. I did it this week, okay? So I'm not like some like special person because I'm on the panel. It's like, I literally this week said, Jed, I am failing at everything. I feel like I'm half A at this, and I'm mediocre at this, and I'm not proactive in this, I'm reactive, and I'm this, and our house looks like so bad. And by the way, like, I haven't pet the yak, and I'm not building a connection with them, like, while I'm like trying to, you know, clean the mudroom that looks like it has chicken poop all over it. You know, it's just like, why do I carry this so much? Like, I think it's a message that women in particular, I'm not saying that men never experience this, but I think women in particular carry a heavier weight. And a lot of this is because of messages and culture, women's roles, and like how we're still recovering from many years of being oppressed, okay? And I think that it's more and more important to allow yourself permission to just say, you know what? I just left this morning and there's chicken poop. Cool. Jed's gonna have to clean that, you know, like, or it's not gonna get clean. And you know what? That's not the end of the world. And so some of that is, I don't know, there's so many issues. I mean, there's disparity in, you know, amount of household work. There is, you know, inequity in childcare of your own kids, you know. There is so many, I mean, you go to leanin.org and read all the issues that women are facing right now. I wish I could report to you that during COVID, the things got better. They got terribly worse for women. There's all kinds of data, go read it, right? But we have to commit to allowing ourselves the freedom to be human beings. And just like realize that balance is what it is, a continual shift from I feel awesome here and then I don't feel awesome here, and then I'm gonna have that balance out. It's just what it is. So I think that internal struggle of women is probably the biggest barrier among many things, but.
And we don't entertain at my house for that very reason.
Yeah.
Because I can't do everything I do and keep a perfectly clean house.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
It's picked up, I can live in it. Our family lives in it, it's not a problem, but I can't entertain, nor do I want to be honest. So for me, we're going out to dinner. I'm not inviting you over to my house, and I would love for you to come to my house. You could all come to my house, as long as you bring like a dust cloth or something to sit on. Because I, you know, and it's not that I'm embarrassed,
No.
it's like, I'm too busy to clean my house.
Well, and I love what you said about like, I'm outsourcing things at work.
Exactly.
Why can't you outsource your house? You know, like,
Because the neighbors will talk.
right? Like, but like, I'm an
Mayor makes too much money, she's hiring a cleaning lady.
I started changing, like, when a friend of mine asked to hang out, I was like, I'm gonna be cleaning today. Do you wanna come over? I'll like make you a really great coffee and like, we can just like rub rags together. You know, like, it just like, you can have a new way, like, why do we have to like have a nice dinner to hang out?
Right.
Why do we have to like go do this trip? Like, we can hang out in the moments of life. You know, and like that can provide a sense of like freedom, you know, just to do the thing.
Robin, did you have something on that?
No, I think that she's absolutely right. I always expect so much of myself, and I think we all do that, you know, expect ourselves to be able to do it all. And I just think back, and it's like both of my parents were very, very hard workers, but my dad just had jobs, never one, usually two, sometimes three. You know, he drove the school bus, mowed the cemetery, ran the restaurant, whatever, they worked. And my mom did the same, you know, she did all the cooking in the restaurant, but yet she had 6 kids at home to take care of and get ready for school and do the laundry and clean the house. And my dad didn't do any of those extra things. You know, he got home from work and he was exhausted, and rightfully so. And he, you know, ate dinner and from the table went to the chair, and then all of us kids and mom cleaned the house and did everything. And it's like, it's just the way we were raised. So I do feel like, you know, all of that is on me. And to this day, I can't let go of it. You know, for 17 years, we lived at the RBC house where we had 6 teenage boys that lived with us, plus our 2 kids. So I've always had 8 kids at a time. So when you have 8 kids at a time and they're all in sports and band and concert, and you're running and running and running and just going, but yet I was a good leader because on Saturday mornings, everybody had their task. Nobody left the house till the house was clean, because I realized I cannot do it alone. I just cannot. You're all going to have to participate in this. And so I'm still really good at that. And I don't want to say it's bossy, but I do realize that it's not my responsibility alone. It's all of our responsibility. And so, yeah, I love entertaining. And I had a big party over the 4th of July, and I literally counted like 65 days that I didn't take a day off work. And so the 3rd and 4th of July, I said, my phone is not, I'm not answering it. I'm just shutting it off. And I mean, this is for me, like, you know, really hard to do, but I thought I just need to. And my husband like laughed at me. He's like, you're the only person I know who says this is time off. You have 60 freaking people here. And I'm like, but they're doing their own thing. And you know what? I didn't clean my house for them. I mean, I thought if the toilet's dirty, sorry, you know, because really I'm not going to just waste the time that I have to relax cleaning the house to make you happy. So seriously, there's a toilet brush. If you want to clean it before you use it, go for it. But it's what it is. And I mean, it's not like it's, you know, filthy dirty, but I just didn't bust my butt and make it spotless like I once would have. I just realized that, you know what, this is okay, and you'll come, and we spent the time outside anyway, so it was fine.
Well, I think, Robin, like that's how honesty translates to real life, right? Honesty translates to real life, not just like I'm delivering a message to you. Like that's not what I just mean by honesty. It's this. It's like, you know what? I'm a busy gal, and I have a lot going on, and I also really love hosting people.
Right.
So you know what? Grab the toilet brush. You know, it's just like, this is what you have to do, like to live honestly. Because otherwise, if you were like, oh my gosh, I gotta make my house better, that wouldn't be who you are.
And it wouldn't be fun, and it wouldn't be relaxing. And I am lucky because I have really good friends, and everybody comes over and just pitches in, you know? And so just like you said, you don't have to just have this party and sit and talk, and everybody's just like doing this and doing that. I've got people out picking stuff up in my yard, whatever, you know? And it's just part of being around it. Pick who you know, surround yourself with, I think is huge.
Okay, so I'm gonna shift the narrative as we kind of come to this point, to mentorship. So I can personally attest that Robin has issues with work-life balance. She was helping me buy a house, and I was texting her and found out she was in the hospital having surgery, and she was responding to text. But that aside, I was bored. You know?
I'm bored. I'm just laying here.
But I know a lot of, especially people who are launching a business or who are trying to grow in their leadership skills, they're looking to people who've done that before them to help mentor them and guide them. And it can be tough, I think, not to create them into mini yous because they're them. And then how do you find you show up do you show up as a mentor? If you do, how do you mentor? What are your thoughts on that? What do you see as challenges around what people need to be mentored in?
Well, that's where the cheerleading comes in, doesn't it? I think people need to be, you know, seriously encouraged. People, like Kim said, people want to be acknowledged for what they are putting in. It's hard. I think the one thing that I've loved about real estate over my career at Mayo, I had a job, I had a good job, I had a good salary, and I got paid exactly the same as all the people who worked in the same department as I did, who didn't work nearly as hard as I did, who didn't come in early, who didn't have meetings over their lunch hour, who didn't stay late, but that's just the way they did it, right? I mean, I would get a certificate to go to dinner because I hadn't missed any sick days, you know, little things like that, right? And then I realized I'm gonna go into a job where I will be the one that reaps the reward of my hard work, right? And so I know from my own experience that when people are just getting going, what they really need is to be encouraged and to be like, that was really awesome what you did. And so I really work hard at that. You know, like when I have new agents and they're starting to feel frustrated, I'm like, my gosh, I saw the way you talk to your clients, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You're awesome at this. You're just a natural. And I think it helps them keep going if they know that as their leader, I believe in them and I'm here to encourage them and cheer them on. So I think it's important.
I mean, I wrote my master's thesis on mentoring. So like, it was definitely an area of passion for me. But one of the biggest learnings of my research was most people don't mentor because of how loaded the word is. Like, oh, you're my mentor. Like literally today, I'm leaving after this to drive to my mentor's home in Wisconsin, right? And I introduced her 3 years ago as my mentor, and she was like, I'm not your mentor. She's 57 years old. I'll be 41 next week, right? I mean, not that much older than me, right? But guess what? When I was 13, you know, and you were whatever what that is, right? 30 or something, right? That was a big difference. And you know what she did? She let me sit in her kitchen. And she had 4 kids and they were all like running around, and she'd make me some like foofy hippie smoothie. And I'd talk to her about like all the boys that I thought were cute and like how my schoolwork is so hard and like, you know, all my first world problems, right? And she just had like super space for me. And you know what, that like mentorship, what I would call it, is now my friend, right? And I'm going to hang out with her for my birthday weekend, right? And this idea of like, I think we just need to deconstruct mentoring, that it's this idea of like, it's coming alongside. And do you know what? You can be mentored by someone who is in a book. Brene Brown mentors me, right? I have several like spiritual people that mentor me, right? There's this idea of like, we need these people around us. Christine mentors me, right? It's not like, Christine, will you be my mentor? And will you please meet with me like every week to like tell me all of your wisdom? No, but like, I think there's intentionality. And even if you just say like, hey, I'd like to have a conversation about this, you know, like creating those touch points to say like, I'm being mentored today by you, you know, like, and I think, yes, is it helpful to have a coach, or is it helpful to have a formal mentoring relationship? Yes, I think at some points in our lives, we really need this. Maybe at critical moments, you know, when we're starting something or when we need that encouragement or that courage or whatever. But I think like you should always have someone, whether that's an author, a podcast, a real life human being, like who is speaking into your life, who is coming alongside you and helping you to be who you want to be. Don't like fill your head and your brain power with all the things of like people who are inspirational, but actually in reality, if you are honest with yourself, you're nothing like, right? That's cool. But I mean, maybe you'll pull out a concept or two, but I just think if you see someone in your periphery, in your network, who could benefit from learning something that you know, you should feel free to share that. I read a whole book in grad school called Reverse Mentoring. My professor wrote it, and he would meet with a 21-year-old college student, and he was at the time like 45. He would take a college student to coffee every single week to be mentored by the college student. Right? Now that was a very formal situation, but it's someone reverse mentoring. They're saying like, he would be like, what are all the things that people in college are talking about? What's cool? Like, what are people doing? Like, how are they hanging out? Are there any words I need to start using? Like, literally, that's what he did. And he took intentionality around that. So I think like, also not forgetting that like mentoring can happen, like not just by age or by experience, it can happen the other way. I think that's really important too, that you take intentionality around, you know, making sure that you are aware of what's going on and how that impacts your personal career and your personal life.
So as I'm listening, my brain is going someplace different than it did earlier when I read the question. So we'll just go with that. I think there's a difference between a coach and a mentor. And my experience with coaching when I was a Bush Fellow was the person who could ask you the question that you needed to answer that you didn't even know what the question was.
Yeah.
And so my coach would ask me questions and make me really stop and think. And then it was on me to learn from that, right? But she was able to ask the questions that I was not seeing that there was a question there. And so I needed to really think about it. So that was really helpful. With mentoring, one of the pluses of my fellowship was going back to get my master's degree. And I did it, half my classes was in a cohort and the other half of my classes was just with college students that were 19, 20, 21 years old. And that in and of itself was a mentoring like nothing I'd experienced for some of the same reasons that Bethany just described. I'm in an environment where I love learning, so I love education. I was thrilled to be in a classroom. That part was great. But the other students around me are kind of like, there's an old lady in the back of the class. What's she doing there, right? You know. But when you're at the Humphrey School, they're all interested in politics, and then when they find out you have a political background, suddenly you're accepted. But I could use that experience to learn from the young people about what they're thinking, what they want out of life, what's different about the way they think and the way I think. And we often tend to listen to people in our own sphere of, you know, our daily lives or our business. This gave me a chance to like hear from kids all over the country, all over the state, all over the world, and learn about what their concerns were. And so that was an informal mentorship for me that really helped me be able to come into a different form of leadership and understand young people and know that I need to make contact with them, that it isn't, you just don't know young people because you have kids, right? My kids are 40, right? They're grown-ups now, and 30, in that range. The other thing that I would say about mentorship that was more where my brain went before is you can't mentor, you can, but it's hard to mentor people who don't think they have anything to learn.
That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
And there are times you see someone who's making just really their faux pas or they're just things that aren't going to help them in their business or their industry, and you can see it plain as day, and they don't recognize it because I believe in our culture in the last 20 years have told people too much that you're perfect just the way you are and you don't need to learn and change. And so they're like, well, I'm me and it's okay that I do this thing. And it's not okay. And so while we need to own who we are, we need to be authentic, we also need, all of us, including me, need to be open to hear the thing that's not going so well. And I had the opportunity to do some 360s, part of my Rockwood leadership, and I also did it with Bloomberg. And that's probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. And in my world, the political world, when you're asking someone on the other side of the aisle to give you feedback, you don't know what you're gonna get, right? And so I read stuff, and you have to look through it, but to be able to look to other people, find out your faults, and then for me, finding those mentors who I know are good at that thing that I'm bad at and seeking out their help.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. I can mentor people, but if they don't want to be mentored, if they think they're right, that's so painful.
It's an energy suck.
Yes, yes.
It's so, and you just want to help them. You just see that thing and you're like, oh, just let me help you. So I don't know. But then I also need mentors as well.
I think we all do through our whole lives, right, in different
Correct.
situations. I have more questions. This time is going very fast. I wanted to know if there are questions out there that somebody had. Go ahead.
I have a question. So, obviously, I mean, life is all about communication, and you three have jobs and roles that are demand good communication, high communication, fast communication. So when you're coming across situations where you need to, diffuse something, right? Whether it's somebody's coming in hot, whatever it is, or people aren't happy or disagreements. Do you have sort of a quick go-to that has a skill that has worked to diffuse it, so then we can get on this sort of a level playground so we can have a good conversation?
For me, I always start by validating what that person is saying or feeling, because it's very real to them. And start there and then just talk through it, So I think it's very important, because as soon as you say, no, that is not right, then now the wall is up. But as you say, I hear what you're saying and I can tell that you're really upset about this, so let's talk about it, let's take it from there. So I think that you have to start by absolutely understanding that what they're saying is valid. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's very real to them.
And I would say in my business, sometimes the difference between real and unreal is opinion versus fact.
Correct.
That's a tough one. Your opinion is valid, your facts may not be. And so you have to talk through that. But I agree, people need to be heard and they need to know they've been heard. And over years, I have come to the point where I say, I hear what you're saying. Sometimes you can restate it. And I see it differently. Here's a different perspective on that. Have you thought about this? And it doesn't mean at the end of the day, you agree. In fact, you may go away with exactly the same opinions that you did, but you felt heard.
Correct.
You've been valid, you're validated in the sense that she heard what I said, she just doesn't agree with me. It helps. It doesn't help everyone, but it helps a lot.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. I think that, like, kind of similar to Robin, a lot of times I'll just say, like, thank you so much for sharing, because that takes a lot of courage. Like, even if someone's hot, it still takes courage, for them to, like, do their hotness thing, or maybe that actually didn't take courage and you're kind of like just diffusing a little bit by just pausing a little bit. I mean, I have activator talent, so I'm generally get myself mostly into trouble by moving too fast. So I've even found that just giving myself a natural pause, sometimes people need to hear themselves talk. Like if someone's like, you did this thing, and they like got a lot of words, and then you're just like, thank you for sharing. They have to like sit with that, like what they just said. And all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, maybe I was a little too strong or whatever. The other like kind of strategy that I sometimes use, and it depends on the situation because I mean, it's not appropriate for every situation, but I'll say like, thank you for sharing. Like, are you open for feedback? Are you open to hearing a different perspective? Like some of what you're saying, right? Like, because some people literally will say no.
Or even if they don't say it, they're looking at us.
Correct. But you have to make them like, okay, so what happens is if you can't respond to me and say yes, then you're not open for feedback. Then I know it's not safe. Right now, they could say, yes, I'm open for feedback. And then I begin to like say something in like a kind way, watch my tone, watch my body posture, watch all my thing. And then they might be like this. I'll be like, you know what? I hear like maybe now is not a good time for feedback. I don't belabor it. I don't go longer into it.
Right. Or we're going to agree to disagree. Which
Sure. Or like maybe another time, or reach out to me at another time when you're ready to have an open dialogue. Like I just think like your emotion doesn't need to become mine. And so whatever you can do to like go like this a little bit, like it's not unkind to do that. It's actually very kind.
Right. But just be careful that you don't say things like you're overreacting, or something, because then it's like, oh, you think they're overreacting now, that's gonna go crazy. So.
And I also find like talking about behavior rather than identity.
Correct.
Oh, dude, this is so critical. I just had a leader, do this that I work with. Name call someone. And I literally in the meeting called it out. I got a lot of flack from that leader because they felt humiliated. And I said, I'm sorry you felt humiliated. I'm not sorry I called you out. I owned it, right? Because you can't name call. Name calling is speaking to someone's identity. You don't know who they are. You can speak to the behavior. The way I believe that person acted was foolish. I believe their decision was uninformed, not you're a dumbass, or not you are incompetent to be in this role. That's not okay, right? So I think some of that is making sure that you respond to behavior or ideas and not to someone's personhood.
It just made me think of a time I was at Subway. That Subway's not even there anymore, but the one down by the government center. I went in there to get a sandwich and this girl was being trained. So she washed this is way before COVID, okay? So she washed her hands, dried her hands, took my order, made my sandwich, and her supervisor was watching her the whole way. And when she got to the end, the supervisor said, now throw it in the garbage. You didn't put your gloves on. I said, whoa, 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 it's my sandwich, I'm gonna eat it, it's just fine. And maybe you should have told her to put her gloves on before she started making the sandwich. And then I looked at the girl and I said, I'm so sorry that she treated you that way. And the girl was like, you know, and so I took the sandwich, but I thought, what a horrible way to treat that poor 16-year-old, you know, now throw it in the garbage because you didn't put your gloves on. I was like, no, you're not eating it, I'm eating it, it's fine, give it to me. We can't, I said, give me the sandwich, I'm in a hurry. She gave it to me, but yeah, it's like, just crazy.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could go on for a lot longer. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like an hour is quite the right time for a lot of these panels because there's so much good stuff to share. But I recognize that we are kind of coming to the end of our time. And I did promise Michelle I'd get you out of here on time.
Started.
So,
And I'm without my phone today. I left it at home.
Oh my word, how do you survive?
I know.
No, you'll have to have your husband bring it.
No, I'm driving home right now.
all right, so just a quick reminder that we're gonna be in person from now on. So August the 19th, for those of you that saw my big faux pas, I sent out that note and it said in it was the 15th and then on the title it said the 19th. No, that's because August is the 19th, right? I'm trying to do too much at once. We're going to have a panel on creating value as a differentiator. And we've got some exciting people lined up. I'm waiting for a couple more to get on my panel before I tell you. But there's some great people. So thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. I think I didn't manage my time wisely enough to give you more time for questions. Maybe some of them can stay. I don't know if they can or not. I definitely heard that they're supposed to be gone. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's have a round of applause.
Go get your phone, that's so stressful.
Oh, sure.
Hi, good to see you.
You too. How's it going? Really good.
Really good.
Are you enjoying farm life? I am, you know, it's so different and fun, yeah, like, I would have never imagined